What's going on, everyone? So the San Antonio Spurs suffered their second straight loss, this time against the Los Angeles Lakers, and it's unfortunate, right? That was a game that felt like they should have won, and they kind of gave that game away in a lot of ways. Even despite all that, like the Lakers did everything they could to blow that game, and the Spurs just couldn't capitalize. In a lot of ways, this felt like a game of inexperience versus experience. I thought Marcus Smart made a lot of just like key plays. He also made the blunder that almost cost the Lakers the game. But I thought Marcus Smart just made a lot of just heads up veteran plays, veteran moves. I thought the Lakers as a whole had several guys that just made some key veteran plays that Rui Hachimura just charged that he was able to draw on Wemby and stuff like that, which is fine, right? It sucks. It's unfortunate. Right? Like this was a game that I felt Spurs should have won. But, hey, you lose some, you win some. But one of the things that I talked about, because Spurs started 5-0, right? And first time in franchise history, which is crazy to think about because think of how good Spurs teams have been and, the 60-plus win totals and stuff like that. Never started 5-0. Pretty crazy. But nonetheless, they haven't. This was the best start of the season. Spurs second in defense, first in transition points, right? All of that. They are a very good basketball team, and they're playing like a very good basketball team, right? But, how did they respond, or how would they respond to a loss? And I talked about, right? They're getting a much tougher schedule coming up, and this is a team that's young, inexperienced. You start losing, you lose a game, okay, no big deal, right? Losses happen, right? But then you start losing 2, 3, 4, right? Like this can start spiraling rather quickly. And, I talked about not even just if they lose to the Lakers, that I don't necessarily think it's panic mode or anything like that, right? Like, I don't think like this warrants an overreaction. But I talked about I wanted to see how, if they did lose, how do they lose? And again, I thought that this was not a good loss. There's not really good loss, but I thought that this was a loss that, again, felt like you should have won. I think both teams can kind of, obviously the Lakers because they won, so they have a little more to it. But I do feel like this is a game both teams could really kind of come away with some positives and a lot of negatives. I also just thought that this was just a sloppy game period. I mean, 84 free throws. 84 free throws this game, right? And again, I felt like the refs got involved a little too much both ways, right? Again, if we're going to be fair, there was some heinous calls that went the Spurs way and some heinous calls that went the opposite, right? There's a couple things I've always talked about, right? Regardless, I've said this about random teams. I've said this period. I don't like when the refs get involved at the end of games. I mean, obviously, it was to the Spurs' benefit. They end up going to the free throw line. Julian Champagnie, which I don't know about you, but to me, he looked petrified. I just, as soon as he stepped up to the line, I was like, he's going to miss these. He did not look comfortable at all up there. Again, goes into the inexperience. Like I said, I feel like this is a game of a team that was inexperienced facing a team that was very experienced, and the experience outweighed the inexperience, right? I think it was that simple in all ways. Again, a lot of bad from each team, a lot of good from each team. I'll touch on that here more in a moment. But, right, this is something that I just drives me crazy, is particularly towards the end of games. Obviously, if it's something egregious or it's something that's crazy, just let teams play, particularly down the stretch, right? Obviously, again, the heads up play by Rui and stuff. It drives me crazy when refs decide and dictate games, right? It's just big thing for me. But regardless, right? Spurs, I thought that this is a game where you have a lot of film to look at. And again, if you're the Spurs, you're looking at this hey, this is a game that we should have won. We had control over. Wemby did not play a great game. It wasn't like Wemby was out there just killing it, right? Credit the Lakers. Lakers, I thought, did some nice things, but I also thought that, the Spurs, Wemby just kind of didn't have it tonight, right? And it happens. even the best of them, right? So, you kind of look at it and go, hey, we had that game, couple blunders there late. We were up 9 late, kind of can't relinquish those leads. There's a lot of good takeaways from this game. There's people are going to point to like, oh, they were without Reeves and Luka. And yes, to an extent, but you're without De'Aaron Fox. You haven't gotten De'Aaron Fox yet. And again, this is a game that you should have won regardless. And, and you kind of tip your hat to the Lakers and you go, hey, you know what? You pulled off. You got the steal, right? You stole this game. Okay? If you're the Spurs, you have to dust that off and move forward, right? Because, again, this is something that I'm okay with this loss. This, again, there's no, like, good, like, great losses or anything like that, but I thought that this was about as good of a loss as you can get, right? Again, this was just a game that I felt was lost due to inexperience. I talked about how, how do you respond to a win? But if they lose to the Lakers, how do they lose to the Lakers? Do they just get ran through on the road? Does it kind of just like, okay, maybe the Spurs really weren't that good? Right? Maybe this is just, maybe that 5-0 thing was just kind of the roll of the dice, right? Because everyone wants to talk about like, hey, Spurs didn't have a super tough schedule and blah, blah, blah. Right? Like, yes, it sucks to lose to a Lakers team who's been playing very good too. They've been playing excellent basketball. But if you're the Spurs, it sucks losing to a team that didn't have Austin Reeves and LeBron. It's like, Luka's great, but it's like, man, we couldn't have beaten them. Like, I get all of that. I get all of the noise and the conversation, things like that. Right? There's going to be a lot of that. But I thought the Spurs did a good job. And I thought that they fought through and through. I thought they controlled the game for most of it. Right? And I thought that they were in a position to where they should have won that game. Right? Like, again, like, off of a loss, nothing's worse than losing those tight games. And like, I'd rather my team get blown out by 30 than lose on a missed free throw or something like that at the end of the game. Right? Like, it's just how it goes. Right? But given the context, young Spurs team coming off of a loss, this was about as good of a loss as it gets. Ugly game, you still scrapped, you had a bunch of turnovers, missed free throws, all of it. 9 missed free throws, bunch of turnovers. Like, this game was as sloppy as it gets, and you still were 2 free throws away from sending it in overtime, and then who knows what happens. Anything can happen in OT. So I thought that this was great for the Spurs. I think this is a game that is a building block. You just keep building upon it, right? You digest it. You go through the film. You correct some things. I think you bounce back and you beat Houston, right? Because Houston, I think, is going to be another big test. So it doesn't get easier. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.